Alright, well I've been putting this off for a while, so it's time to do it. I'm going to walk around the house and show you the various things that I've made over the years. Let's start outside here. These Adirondack chairs were made from some plans. They're almost identical, just some minor changes on the second one that I made. And then out here also, the fence was a big project, but mostly I'm going to stick to some smaller projects as I go through this. Let's go back inside. You're going to see all these projects in their well-used state. This table and chairs was made for Elijah. That came from Anna White's set of plans. It was very simple to build, although I had a lot of hard time getting the covering on top of the blue latex paint to work out, but it's held up pretty well. Over here in the kitchen is a little box that Tyler uses to hold all of her stuff for her espresso machine. It's got Purple Heart down at the bottom and walnut, and then it's got a line of Purple Heart through. And I used a box joint jig. I was trying that out on this project. It sits right in the sun, so I was wondering how the Purple Heart would hold up, but it's looking alright. Here's a toy plane. This was a Woodworking for Mere Mortals fundraiser. If you built a plane of any kind, he would donate $1 or $2 or something to it was American Cancer Society, I believe. There's a whole bunch of blocks. These were just made out of poplar. They're just big blocks Elijah likes to build with. Lots and lots of toys, but underneath it all are some shelves that I made. Kind of just filled the size and shape that we were looking for. Probably won't be saved after Elijah's done with the toys, but for now they work out alright. Fun fact, when I made these drawers, I forgot to account for the drawer slides, so I ended up having to run them through the table saw after they were built to shave off 1/4 of an inch or so on each side. Oh, I accounted for 1 drawer slide, that's what it was, but not 2. It turned out alright, they're just a little flimsy. These are some of my favorites. For the last 3 years, I've made Elijah a present every year for Christmas. This was the first one. Front end loader. These are from the Wood Magazine series. There's a dump truck. That one stays up like that. This one has had a little problem with this piece falling off as he bangs it around. And then the most recent one was a semi tractor with a lowboy that's enormous and a dumper, or side dump trailer. We had a coffee table here, and it made a good place for Elijah to play, but he was just going to destroy the top, so I made a piece of plywood with some edges around it so that it would protect the table, and I spray painted it green and put a couple coats of lacquer on it, and it has held up amazingly well. This thing is fantastic. Some of the edges are getting beat up, but that's what it's for, because when he's done, I'm just going to throw the whole thing away. I love it. It's great, especially for Legos. This box sits up here by our TV. I was kind of playing around with trying to book match some walnut with some interesting figure. But all this is for is to hold a whole mess of cables and wires, which is a little Raspberry Pi Nintendo. But the box is nice. It's got some maple splines in there to keep the edges a little bit stronger, the corners. This learning tower is probably our most used project. It has an adjustable shelf on the bottom, and it folds up, although we never fold it up because it's always in use. It started on the top, and Elijah has slowly been growing. Fantastic project, highly recommended. The plans are on Anna White's website. This planter bench was a relatively new project. I think this is some kind of mahogany or sort of fake mahogany, but I'd intended to do it all with mortise and tenon, and it ended up being some pocket holes in there too because I screwed up when I was cutting it. But you can't tell, and it looks nice. You have this cherry piano book shelf thing. I love how this has darkened up over the past couple years since I built it. And it's got a drawer. Just keep some piano stuff in there. Here's a sign that I made for Tyla. It's just a piece of maple, and I cut a stencil out on the vinyl cutter, and I think it's spray paint. I spray painted over a couple coats of that and peeled it off, and it came out really nice and sharp. I made this simple cross here. The cherry comes from a tree that we took down alongside our driveway. Over our door is this sign. All the letters were cut out on a laser cutter at work, and then I painted them separately, obviously, and then attached them to just a 3/4 inch piece of plywood. But the nice thing is it fits perfectly over our door. It's just the right size. On this wall is probably one of my favorite projects. It's a beautiful walnut frame, and then I spent forever getting this maple crosshatch pattern to work. It's like 2 layers glued together carefully to overlap to be pretty strong. And then I printed off a whole bunch of Instagram photos and put them in there. And the way I built it, I can easily take out the pictures and replace them later if I want to. Back out here on the front step again is this bench. This was the first project I made completely with mortise and tenon joinery. Actually, one of the only ones I've done. There's no fasteners used on this, and it came out pretty well. It's just made out of lumber from Home Depot too, just 2x4s and maybe some 2x8s and stuff, but it's all working out okay. Having a coat of paint on it really helps to help things survive outside. Elijah has this one up on his wall. It's just cut out on the laser cutter. It's my dad's tractor, so he likes that. And then this is something we kind of worked on together. He put these little pieces of wood together onto a piece of cherry plywood, and then I made a frame for it. And I also framed a piece of artwork that the 3 of us had all done together at his school. He picked the yellow for the frame. This is a box that I made for myself. It's some figured maple with walnut inside. I never really make a whole lot of things just for myself, so I thought I would make a box, and it just sits on my dresser, which is super messy, so that's why I'm not showing you the dresser. Here's another laser cutter project. I cut out the tree shape and then stuck it into a block of walnut, and Tyler hangs some bracelets on it. This is one of the first projects that I would call sort of fine woodworking. And I made this for Tyler. It's a jewelry box out of Wood Magazine. I made this with very few tools. I went around searching because I didn't have any way to plane the wood down or anything. I ended up borrowing a friend's planer, but that was the first time I'd ever used one. No jointer. I would probably use a different finish. I just used polyurethane, which wasn't a great choice, but I'm still pretty proud of this. This one is a Steve Ramsey design. It's a bed with no box spring, just a mattress. And it sits on there, and then there's storage. These drawers pull out. Actually, that one doesn't. That's a fake drawer. Is it? Or they're just stuck. Yeah, there's no drawer slides. So these drawers pull out, and then there's storage underneath. Just a way to get a little extra storage here in the guest bedroom. Our hall closet used to be even more of a mess. At least the mess is hidden now because I built these giant cabinets along the side. And they hold stuff. It gets it kind of out of sight. We have to leave this door open because this very simple computer tower is here with all my computer gear and networking gear and lots of cables. But anyway, this has made this room look significantly nicer. This is a very recent project. Mario, made out of maple, walnut, and padauk. And then each one of those little squares has a chamfer on it. Took a while to do all that sanding, but came out looking neat. That's a David Picciuto design. This is something, I feel like I probably saw it somewhere, but I don't know where. It's supposed to be the state of Washington, and every bottle cap there is unique. And some of them are sort of where things are, like when Red Hook was in Woodinville, that was pretty close, and there's a No Lie Brewing over in Spokane. But most of them are just randomly placed. Here's my messy desk and cabinet storage. This was one of the first projects I did when we moved in, putting these IKEA cabinets in, and then I covered it with a piece of oak plywood that was stained, and then a solid piece of oak with a roundover. Again, I did this with very limited tools, and I kind of want to build something different now that I know more of what I'm doing. And I want a stand-up desk, and I want to not have the whole wall be taken up with cabinets, but we'll see what happens. I made these end tables to fit in between the sofa and the chair, and then there's one on the other end of the sofa down there. It's just a simple black pedestal, because you can't really see that, but it's got this nice thick piece of walnut on top. You can actually lift it up, and there's a little bit of storage underneath, but it has power plugs built into the back of it, which makes it easy to put chargers there. And it's nice and heavy. The thing we had there before was really wobbly, so this is a more secure place to put your drinks. Look at our mess. But these shelves were one of the first projects that I built in the house. They were originally on the other side of the garage, and I was able to move them. They're just kind of tied into the studs on the back wall. These storage cabinets on top, and then the shelves on the side were built just to fit around the garage refrigerator. They're pretty deep, so they can hold a lot of stuff. And then I have little vinyl labels here showing what's inside, and then a bunch of the stuff that I've laser cut ends up getting stuck on here. And on the side of the shelves are these little shoe shelves. It was just kind of a random idea. It ends up working out great. And then there's a handle here because Elijah wasn't big enough to get up the steps safely and turn the doorknob all at the same time. And here's just a quick view of my messy shop. But I have a whole video that goes over that, so I won't talk too much about stuff that I've built here. A lot of things I make end up getting given away as gifts. When I was home this summer, I took a picture of some of the ones that have ended up at Mom and Dad's house. This first one is a anniversary gift for their 40th anniversary. It's a piece of pine with a inkjet photo transfer on top of it. And this is from their honeymoon in Jamaica, I believe. This is a cajon. It was a gift from my dad at Christmas. It's a Steve Ramsey design, but a cajon is a Peruvian percussion instrument. So if you tap on either side of the top, you get a slightly different tone. You can do drumming with your hands. This is a sign that I carved by hand with a router. So I think I used the laser cutter to real faintly draw the lines of where the letters were going to be, and then I traced around them with a 1/4-inch router, like a smaller router. These are 2 bandsaw boxes that I made from David Picciuto's book. These are the only 2 bandsaw boxes I've ever made. They were a lot of fun. I don't know why I haven't made more. But both of them have flocking inside the drawers, so they can be used as little jewelry boxes. This is a cribbage board. We play a lot of cribbage when we go home. I made this for my dad. It's cherry and babinga, I think. But I made a really thin slice of both of them. Took them to the laser cutter and experimented with doing inlay using the laser cutter. So I cut the track out, and then I cut the cherry out to hold the track. And then I slapped the whole thing on top of a bigger piece of cherry. The track pins holes were cut out using a metal jig that I bought from somewhere. So that made it a lot easier to get all the holes just perfect. A year or 2 or 3 ago, David Picciuto sent me a box of his scraps because I supported him on Patreon. So I finally found an excuse to use them. I cut up a whole bunch of them using the laser cutter and then pieced them all together. So I designed this butterfly in vector art and then cut it all out, cut out all the pieces, and then tried to remember how they all fit together and then glued it all together. It's pretty fragile, but it hangs on the wall and it hasn't fallen apart yet, so that's good. And here's a just classic cutting board project. Oh, I have one of these too. I forgot to take a picture of it. It's a little bit different design, but same idea. So it's just largely walnut and maple. With this one has some padauk in it as well. So that's it. Thanks for walking around the house with me and taking a look at some things that I've built. I'm sure I missed a whole bunch, and I will be kicking myself as I see them all later, but that's good enough for now. Thank you. Bye.